Caves have always held a special place for man. Some of the earliest art and storytelling are found there. In South Africa, these covered dwellings were used to record mysterious medical treatments, while in other parts of the world they were a testament to the daily life and the hunt. No matter the message, caves had a sacred role for man. Maybe because they were the first safe haven or shelter, or maybe because in their essence, caves are mysterious, dark, and often seemingly never-ending entrances to another world. More modern writers like Mark Twain to Jules Verne use caverns as a metaphor and a passage to another realm or for nurturing the human experience. The great Eastern religions of Buddhism and Hinduism are no different. In two collections of hollowed-out rock ledges in India are the most fabulously decorated and significant Hindu and Buddhist caves in the world. It was here one religion superseded another. Yet, unlike most times where a faith is supplanted, the old religion here was not destroyed and replaced by the new, but worshipped and existed side by side. So join me this week as we explore the great caves of Ajanta and Ellora. Namaste, I'm Bill Ball, and I'm going to be your guide on this episode of Journeys in India. And this is India! The caves of Ajanta and Ellora, about 100 miles north of the city of Aurangabad on the east coast of India. The most famous nearby city is Mumbai or Bombay, which is an international gateway city with a modern airport and a number of attractions in its own right. From Mumbai or Delhi, the other gateway city in India, it is a relatively short flight to Aurangabad. The temptation might be to head directly to the UNESCO site caves. But don't! Aurangabad is worth a day or two of your time. The city dates back to 1610 when it was established as a commercial, political, and military outpost inland from the west coast of India. In fact, it contains the tomb of one of the most important figures in India's history, Aurangzeb, the son of the builder of the Taj Mahal. Aurangzeb was an ambitious boy stuck in the middle of three brothers. Now, what's a power-seeking middle child to do? Kill your siblings, of course. After dispatching his brothers, he turned his attention to his father, Shah Jahan. Shah Jahan was already a legend, having built the Taj Mahal as a mausoleum for his favorite wife, Mumtaz, as well as beautiful palaces, mosques, and magnificent forts. Aurangzeb did not want to wait for his turn to rule. He wanted it now. In a daring military move, he defeats his father and locks him in the Agra fort overlooking his beloved Taj Mahal. 7 years later, Shah Jahan is buried there beside his much-loved Mumtaz. Aurangzeb did not like the over-the-top flourishes of his father. He felt it was an insult to Islam, so he decided that he would have a much simpler grave. And this is the result. It is one of the most understated final resting places for a ruler in Indian history. Which is sort of ironic since the other big attraction in Aurangabad is a copy of that over-the-top final resting place he so despised. Upon entering Aurangabad, one of the most shocking sights awaits you. I haven't left Aurangabad and magically appeared in Agra. It's not an optical illusion, though. What you're seeing behind me is built by another family member in another city. The real Taj Mahal is some 700 miles away, and yet this smaller version was built in 1661 by Aurangzeb's son, Prince Azam Shah, for his mother. Now there's an afterlife conversation I'd like to hear. This Taj is about 50% of the size of the original, and unlike the original, only the bottom 3 feet is made of marble. The rest is plaster. This poor man's Taj Mahal cost 45 times less. A closer inspection reveals that the Aurangabad version is not an exact copy of the more famous and larger mausoleum, but the inspiration is unmistakable. Near the Mini Taj and just outside of Aurangabad is one of the most spectacular ruins in India, if not Asia, the Daulatabad Fort. Possibly built by the Yadav dynasty of kings that ruled the area from the late 1100s through the 1200s. This was the first fortification built under their command. A series of Muslim invasions from Delhi started in 1294, and with each, the Yadav kings lost power and often their lives. The last of the dynasty, Yarodev, in 1318, was flayed alive and his head hung on the main gate. From that time, the fort was under the Sultanate of Delhi. For a brief period, the Sultan actually moved the capital from Delhi to this fort. Over the next 500 years, the fort would see the rise and fall of 6 more kingdoms, seeing its share of kings, sultans, and emperors. The reason why became obvious. This incredible fort was much more than a fort. It was actually a city. Built between 1100 and 1300, 7 massive walls surrounded it, making it virtually impregnable. The name Daulatabad means City of Fortune, and though from its powerful position it did harbor great wealth, it also was a target of each new rising military star, making its fortune status a bit questionable. The fort sits on a 60-foot natural mountain that was so finely chiseled that climbing it was nearly impossible. It was surrounded by 3 ramparts and 2 moats, one dry and one wet. Inside the massive fort, each bastion had large cannons mounted on it. It was truly unconquerable, and each time it changed hands, it was by treachery, not military prowess. The most famous changing of the guard was when Aurangzeb, the great Mughal conqueror, took the territory and made special use of one of its buildings. When you visit a historic monument like this, you actually live the history. It's interesting because some of the stories seem to come right out of the stones of this buildings. One of them is about Aurangzeb. He was the son of Shah Jahan, and it was here in this fort that he locked up the last of the Qutub Shahi kings and changed the history of another city here in India. The holding cell for the last king of the Shahi dynasty was in the Mini Mahal. Though this is now only a gate and a few surviving walls, it was once a palatial building decorated with colorful china clay tiles. The ruins of this monumental castle and fortress are spectacular. Its military role is unmistakable as great cannons still ring the cracked walls. Great towers like the Chand Minar in its 3 floors and 200-foot height is second in India only to the UNESCO site, the Qutub Minar in Delhi. Decorated in glazed Persian tiles, it dates to the 15th century. Interestingly, the ruined city within the walls is not totally lifeless and abandoned. Though people no longer live here, large numbers of bats have taken residence in the towers, broken halls, and palace remnants. As we left the ruins, we could not help but reflect both on how much has changed and yet how much has stayed the same. This was made more evident when we visited the local textile manufacturer. Here there are several looms that are still in use that represent the centuries of advances in cloth making. The first machine we watched in use was a 600-year-old version of textile making equipment that would turn out some of the most beautiful woven silk. That was followed by the modern 300-year-old machine, and then finally the 2,000-year-old pioneering cloth maker. All these machines are still used for a particular product, though the new 300-year-old equipment is most often used. Though mass production of textiles is not only alive in India, but a major industry, in the rural areas, the old ways are not only cherished, but celebrated. It is this handmade cloth that I collect and display because it is truly an art form, whether the loom workers realize it or not. The countryside outside of Aurangabad on the way to Ajanta, our first set of caves, is much like the city, a little new set among the traditional. This is one of the most fertile regions of India with fields of wheat, grapes, sugarcane, and cotton. The cotton farms here are impressive. Thousands of acres of snow-white fields are harvested, creating giant hills of cotton. Though specialty textiles like those we saw back in Aurangabad are still common in India, the mass-produced clothing is often done in other countries that have an even lower cost of labor. Basic cotton processing is done here and then exported to those manufacturing centers. I enjoyed the drive through the country. It is here that you get the best feel for the people and their culture. In many cases, it can be as interesting, if not more so, than the actual attraction you're aiming for. There are times, though, when the featured destination is so spectacular that even the charm of the rural areas pale in comparison. This is one of those times. The Ajanta Caves are not only listed as national treasures by India, but they are also a UNESCO World Heritage Site, meaning they are world treasures with the likes of the Taj Mahal, the Great Wall of China, and the Statue of Liberty. We get our first glimpse of the caves from an overlook where their many entrances are visible.
Behind me are the Ajanta Caves, used by Buddhist monks for over 1,000 years, starting in 200 BC. But they were abandoned in the 800s, and for 1,000 years they were lost to civilization. Then they were rediscovered by an Englishman, standing up here, pretty much where I am right now, and he saw one of the caves above the bushes, and the history was rewritten, and a UNESCO Heritage Site was created.
The size and scale of these caves are impressive. 30 caves covering over a quarter mile from the first to the last are decorated with murals and carvings. This view wasn't always so clear. Shrubs and jungle overgrowth have been removed to halt deterioration and to make them more accessible. Many over 2,200 years old were lost to time until they were rediscovered by a group of British officers on a tiger hunt in 1819. Since that time, these sacred caves have been studied and probed almost continuously. These may be the greatest Buddhist caves anywhere. This is probably a good time to do a quick primer on Buddhism. It is a religion without a supreme being. It is largely based on the teaching of Siddhartha, who lived in India around the 5th century BC. He is not a god, but rather an enlightened one that shares his pathway to nirvana, or inner peace. Buddhism has the predominant religion in India before the spread of Hinduism. Like other great religions, Buddhism has different branches. There are primarily 3, with one centered in Southeast Asia, another in China, Korea, and Japan, and the third in Tibet and Mongolia. Ironically, India, where Buddhism was founded, is not a major center of the faith any longer, though Hinduism often incorporates the ideas, if not the man, into its faith. Most scholars believe Buddha did live, preach, and founded a monastic order. The details of his life as prescribed by each of the different traditions are not as clear. The Buddha saga tells of Prince Siddhartha Gautama, who, after seeing men suffer, gave up his regal way of life and goes on a spiritual quest. He would sit under a sacred Bodhi tree, and through meditation, he freed his mind and became the Buddha. Followers today are drawn to the message of enlightenment and internal peace. The aim is nirvana, which ceases the individual from being reborn time and time again, ending the worldly suffering in favor of a peaceful existence. These mostly pre-Christian Buddhist caves are divided between places of worship and monasteries. They actually were developed in two phases, one around 300 BC and the other between 250 and 500 AD. In all cases, the paintings illustrate the events in the life of Prince Siddhartha, or the Buddha, as we know him today, the founder of Buddhism. The narrative is not continuous from one cave to the next, though the theme is consistent. Greek, Roman, and Oriental art forms make their way into the art's composition, but the overall artistic flair is Indian. And though the art is monument-worthy in its own right, knowing the context of the work will bring clarity and understanding that will only enhance the value and the observer's appreciation. From the vantage point, it is still a bit of a drive to cave level. It took nearly 3 hours to travel from Aurangabad, and once you begin visiting the caves, there is no place to take a break, so it seems prudent to take a breather.
Well, we've just taken a short break from the Ajanta Caves to have some lunch. What we've decided to do is to use a thali platter. It's a chance to do a little bit of everything. And the bread here is millet bread, a specialty of the region. And we're all trying it. Everybody here, my friends and I are all doing it. How do you guys like it?
Wonderful.
It's good. That's good.
It was hard to really think much about the food, as nice as it was, because one of the great wonders of India was just outside. The walk to the first set of caves, though, is a bit of a hike. Uphill. Not to worry. Local men are more than willing to assist in that by literally carrying you. It seems some of the human porters have to work a bit harder than others. I was not disappointed by the interiors of these caves. Each cave seemed to be more beautiful than the last. Some displayed exquisite carvings both inside and out, while others displayed the genius of the early painters. Each of the caves are numbered, and locally available guidebooks index the numbers to an explanation of the art in that cave. This is number 9, which is known for its carved Buddhas. Each of the caves were created during a different time. This was the 1st century BC, though much of the artwork is completed later. This cave is one of the best with both carvings and paintings.
These caves are incredible, each one more elaborate than the last. There's murals, there's carvings. Some of the caves are even mimic wood when it's made out of stone. It's just one of those unbelievable World Heritage Sites.
There is no rush to see these monumental achievements of earlier man and his beliefs. Take your time as you stroll from one to the next. Imagine the work that went into it. First, the work on preparing the caves themselves, then the exteriors, and finally the interior carving and paintings. It is no wonder these are national monuments and UNESCO heritage sites. After a busy day at the Ajanta Caves, a comfortable hotel is always welcome. The hotel choices out near Ajanta are limited, so we went back to Aurangabad for the night. The Taj Hotel Aurangabad offers good Western standards at a reasonable rate. Though there are few remote places in India where Western standards are hard to find, Aurangabad is not one of them. It is up early the next day to head to the Ellora Caves. These caves are a shorter distance from Aurangabad than the Ajanta Caves, less than an hour's drive. Here there are 34 caves of Buddhist, Jain, and Hindu origin.
Well, you might have thought you've seen it all at the Ajanta Caves, but here at the Ellora Caves, there's even more. In fact, not only is there Buddhist caves, but there's Hindu and Jain caves. And there's also the Kailasa Temple, which is just amazing.
You don't have to be a Hindu, Jain, or Buddhist to appreciate the work, artisanship, and reverence that went into these masterpieces. These caves were carved and painted from 500 to 1000 AD and have the largest collection of rock-cut architectural sites in India. The earliest are Buddhist, followed by Hindu, and ending with Jain. There are few other places in the world where three religions share a single site in peace, building on the artistic traditions of one another. And among all the caves and carvings here for the three religions, none is better than the Kailasa Temple. This Hindu temple is one of the greatest rock-carved buildings in the world. Legend has it that it was carved to satisfy a Maharaja's wife. The story holds that the local ruler had built a temple to Shiva in town for his first wife. Wife number 2 was so jealous that she swore off relations with the Maharaja until she saw the pinnacles of a Shiva temple built for her. The frustrated husband came up with a rather clever plan. The Kailasa Temple is the only cave temple that is carved top down rather than front to back, so the pinnacle was completed first. That was probably a good idea, since the carving would take over a century to complete. It is regarded today as one of the greatest achievements of man, but the temple is but one of the fabulous Hindu caves, let alone those dedicated to Buddhism and Jainism. The Jain caves were the last to be carved and painted and represent the life of Mahavira, a contemporary of Buddha and the last leader of the Jain religion. According to Jainism, all the leaders are born as ordinary humans, but they ultimately reach a state of perfection and enlightenment through meditation and self-reflection. They then attain a godlike status. Mahavir was a prince of Bihar, India, when he was born in 599 BC. At age 30, he gave up his title and all worldly possessions and became a monk. For the next 12 years, he meditated and fasted so he could give up all worldly desires. After 12 years, he reached that perfection, nirvana. The Jain caves here were dedicated to the Jain sect that chose to go naked, so the carvings often reflect that. Jains do not want to hurt any living creature, some taking it as far as the microscopic ones, and so the worshippers wear mouth coverings to avoid just that. Of course, there are different orders of Jains like denominations in Christianity, and most profess their faith by simply being vegetarians. The power of faith, be it Buddhist, Hindu, or Jain, is astounding. Each carving or painting is done with an artistic grace reserved for their most ardent believers. As one faith gave way to the next, no harm or destruction was done to the predecessor. In fact, it is now assumed that much of the Buddhist era overlapped with the Hindu caves. Religious tolerance was not just practiced, but it was a way of life. We took the short drive back to Aurangabad for our last night in the area. The city and its surroundings have been incredible. It is a bit out of the way, but that just adds to its charm. As we enter the city for the last time, we pass through the famous Delhi Gate. The once completely walled city had each major gate named for the city it faced. And even though Delhi is 760 miles away, the importance of that city dictated the name.
Aurangabad has so much to offer, from the Ajanta and Ellora caves to a miniature of the Taj Mahal itself. Let's take a look at some of the highlights.
The caves at Ajanta provided an intimate look at one of the world's great religions, Buddhism. The exquisite paintings and carvings were some of the most spectacular early Buddhist art found anywhere. It is no wonder they are UNESCO World Heritage Site. The Daulatabad Fort is a great example of pre-Mughal fortress architecture in the country. Of course, the fort, like many in India, finally fell to the warlord and Mughal ruler Aurangzeb. This area was so important to Aurangzeb that he's buried here, not in a giant tomb like his father's Taj Mahal, but in a simple grave. To get the most out of the fort and grave, hire a local guide to lead you around. They are available at the entrance to the fort. The countryside around Aurangabad is worth a day or two to see how the locals live. It's like stepping into a time warp. The resourcefulness and friendly, outgoing spirit makes these locals dear and special to me. And finally, the icing on a very diverse and lovely cake has to be the Ellora Caves. These caves have the three great Indian and South Asian religions side by side. Buddhist next to Hindu and Hindu next to Jain. A most original arrangement.
I'm Bill Ball, and I'll see you on the next episode of Journeys in India.